The universe is vast, mysterious, and filled with secrets waiting to be uncovered. For centuries, humanity has looked to the stars, searching for answers, seeking the truth behind the unknown. But what if the truth isn't just out there? What if it has already found us? From unexplained encounters to classified government cover-ups, from ancient texts whispering of celestial visitors to modern-day sightings that defy all logic, this is the hidden reality they don't want you to know. What makes humans different? What makes us survivors? And more importantly, what makes us dangerous? Welcome to Top Secret UFOs, where we explore the mysteries beyond our world and the terrifying possibility that we may not be the dominant species in the galaxy after all. Stay with us as we uncover the evidence, analyze the anomalies, and challenge everything you thought you knew about life, the universe, and humanity's place in it. Are you ready to see what's been hidden in plain sight? The void of space stretched endlessly, swallowing light and sound in its infinite abyss. Against this cosmic emptiness, Z Prime, an ancient space station, drifted in orbit around a dying star. Its metallic hull bore the scars of forgotten wars, its towering spires reaching like skeletal fingers into the darkness. Inside, within a grand chamber carved from obsidian like stone, the great Deathworlder assembly convened. The atmosphere was heavy with unspoken tension, the air thick with the scent of ozone and metal. These were not ordinary beings. These were the survivors of the galaxy's most merciless planets. Towering figures stood in the dim blue glow of the chamber's central holographic display. The Carrack, clad in natural armor thick as warship plating. The Vorsk, their venomous blood capable of melting steel. The Rolger, their muscles dense enough to crush boulders with ease. Each species here had been shaped by planets that sought to kill them from the moment they were born. They were the pinnacle of survival, or so they believed. A sudden flicker of light drew their attention to the center of the room. A holographic screen blazed to life, casting long, flickering shadows against the towering walls. On the screen, a desolate wasteland stretched beneath twin suns. Waves of heat rippled across the sand, the very air shimmering with lethal intensity. The temperature readings on the side of the screen flashed red, fatal conditions for nearly every known species. Yet, amidst the howling winds and the shifting dunes, a lone human walked, not crawling, not struggling, not dying, walking. Gorak, a battle-scarred Carrack warrior, voice laced with contempt. That human shouldn't even be alive. A ripple of uneasy murmurs spread through the assembly. The footage continued, humans scaling sheer cliffs, gripping jagged stone with bleeding hands, diving into abyssal depths, where the ocean's pressure alone could crush metal, chasing storms, running straight into hurricanes with reckless abandon. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving. IROK, a veteran Carrack warrior, deep facial scars marking past conquests. Puzzled, they aren't armored, no venom, no claws, no natural defenses. What do they have? DRIX, a scientist, voice barely above a whisper. Bones. Silence. Gorak's gaze narrowed, his massive hands gripping the edge of the stone table. The Carrack had always prided themselves as the peak of evolution. They had conquered a world where the very air could corrode flesh, where molten rivers carved their cities from stone. They knew suffering, they knew endurance, and yet, this data defied everything he understood about survival. DRIX, hesitantly, pulling up another set of readings. Their world, Earth, is unlike anything we have encountered. The hologram shifted. Now, instead of a singular wasteland, it showed a world of extremes. Raging seas, where waves taller than city spires crashed against jagged cliffs. Frozen tundras, where temperatures plummeted to levels that would freeze blood solid. Forest infernos, where flames devoured entire regions in days. Endless deserts, where the very ground cracked under the weight of the heat. Each one, a domain of death, yet, humans existed in all of them. DRIX, his voice tinged with unease. Humans do not simply endure these conditions. They seek them out. They climb the tallest peaks. They dive into the darkest abysses. They hunt predators that should have ended them long ago, for entertainment. The murmurs returned, louder now. The idea was alien to them. IROK, his voice low, disbelieving. They are either lying, or insane. DRIX swallowed hard before continuing. He hesitated, then pressed another button. The hologram shifted again. This time, it wasn't humans against nature. It was humans with nature. A human, standing beside a massive feline, its fangs bared, yet it did not strike. A child, reaching out to touch a reptilian beast that could snap him in half, yet it remained still. A warrior, riding atop a monstrous creature, not as a prisoner, but as a partner. The room stilled. VORSK warlord, his voice sharp, filled with skepticism. They tame the beasts of their world? DRIX, his voice nearly breaking as realization set in. They do not just tame them. They bond with them. They take creatures that would be apex predators on any other planet, and make them allies. Gorak exhaled slowly, the weight of this statement pressing upon him. He had never feared another species before. He had faced down titanic horrors, watched entire civilizations crumble before the might of the Carrick. But this was different. Humans had no armor. They had no venom. They had no claws. Yet they conquered environments that would erase any other species from existence. They weren't just survivors. They were something else entirely. A realization settled into the minds of those gathered, creeping like a shadow at the edges of their consciousness. Perhaps, for the first time, they were in the presence of a greater predator. And then, from beyond the chamber doors, the sound of a single footstep echoed through the silent hall. A human had arrived. The grand chamber's doors slide open with a slow, mechanical hiss. A hush falls over the assembly as every set of alien eyes turns toward the entrance. A lone figure steps forward. He is unarmored, unarmed, by all biological logic, fragile, soft skin, exposed flesh, no natural defenses. Among the monstrous Deathworlders surrounding him, he is nothing but prey. And yet, he walks with purpose. His gaze is steady, scanning the room not with caution, but curiosity. His hands are relaxed at his sides, his posture unshaken. He does not shrink under the weight of countless predatory stares. The Deathworlders have seen warriors, conquerors, and killers, beings who wore their brutality like a second skin. But this human, he is unsettling for a different reason. There is no fear in him, no hesitation, just calm confidence. He steps forward, his boots barely making a sound against the chamber's cold metallic floor. The air is thick with silent scrutiny as the galaxy's most dangerous beings assess him. Weigh him, search for weakness. He gives them nothing. He reaches the central table and, without waiting for permission, takes a seat, a quiet act of defiance. The silence lingers, a test, a challenge. Finally, he speaks. Human ambassador. Gentlemen. His voice is steady, measured, not loud, yet it carries through the room with effortless authority. The Deathworlders glance at one another. There is something deeply wrong about this. A soft-skinned creature should not be this comfortable in a room of predators. IROK, leaning forward, voice low, challenging. You're lucky we allowed you here. Human, we don't waste time with soft-skinned creatures from garden worlds. The human tilts his head slightly, as if considering the statement. Then, he smiles. Not a forced smile, not a nervous one, a knowing smile. Human ambassador, I'd imagine not. Then again, I'd wager most species don't survive long enough to have this conversation with you. A ripple of low chuckles rolls through the room. Even Gorak, battle-hardened and skeptical, allows a faint smirk to flicker across his face. There is something dangerous about this human, but it is not in his body. It is in his mind. A deep, growling voice breaks the uneasy amusement. Craig, a young Carrick warrior, steps forward. His plated exoskeleton gleams under the dim blue lights of the chamber. His muscles, dense as iron, shift beneath his thick, scarred skin. His eyes, predatory, sharp, lock onto the human like a beast scenting fresh prey. He is eager, impatient. Craig, enough of this talk. Let's see if this human is as tough as he claims. The air shifts. The chamber grows tense. The challenge has been issued. The human ambassador exhales slowly, then rises from his seat. Not reluctantly, not fearfully, calm, deliberate. He unbuttons his jacket, rolls up his sleeves, revealing lean but defined forearms. He is not Carrick strong. He is not covered in armor. Yet, he steps forward as if none of that matters. He tilts his head at Craig, voice still light, almost amused. Human ambassador. All right, Craig, how do you want to play this? The room erupts as Craig lunges. A blur of muscle and raw power. His fist, larger than a human's head, swings forward, aimed straight at the ambassador's chest. A strike that could break bone, rupture organs, end this foolish human in one blow. But the human isn't there. The moment Craig's strike is about to land, the human shifts, not by brute force, but by subtlety. A sidestep, smooth, effortless. Craig stumbles forward, his momentum momentarily betrayed. He snarls, whirls around, launching another strike. Faster, stronger. The human dodges again, not in fear, not with desperation, but with precision. Every movement is measured, calculated. He is not meeting brute force with brute force. He is outmaneuvering it. The murmurs return, hushed, uncertain. This is not what they expected. Craig lets out a low growl. His pride burns. His blood pumps with the instinct to dominate. He lunges again, this time with a flurry of rapid, deadly attacks. His fists swing like hammers. His movements becoming wilder, more desperate, and yet, the human continues to evade. No wasted movements, no unnecessary effort, just a dance of control and awareness. And then, the human strikes. Not a reckless blow, not an overpowering assault, a single, calculated movement. He steps inside Craig's guard, shifts his weight, redirects the Karak's force. Craig's own strength betrays him. His legs leave the ground. His balance is stolen. And then, he falls. A massive thud shakes the chamber as Craig collapses to the floor. Stunned, silence. The Deathworlders stare. They are not used to this. This human did not win through brute strength. He used intelligence, strategy, adaptation. He didn't overpower Craig. He made Craig defeat himself. Slowly, the human steps forward and extends his hand to the fallen warrior. His expression is neutral, his breathing steady, as if none of this surprised him. Human ambassador, calmly, strength isn't everything, Craig. Sometimes it's about knowing when and where to strike. Craig glares, his pride burning, his breathing ragged. For a moment, he hesitates. Then, with reluctant respect, he takes the human's hand. The chamber remains silent, but something unspoken lingers in the air. A realization: humans are not strong like the Karak. They are not fast like the Vorsk. They are not armored like the Rolgar. And yet, they are dangerous. Because strength alone does not make a species deadly. Understanding does. And humans understand everything. The chamber was thick with silence. It was not the silence of peace, nor the silence of uncertainty. It was the silence of understanding, a realization so heavy it pressed against the very air. As if the universe itself had momentarily paused. Gorak sat motionless, his massive form carved in shadow beneath the cold, blue luminescence of the chamber's lights. His eyes, deep set and battle-worn, had witnessed countless horrors, planets burning, species falling, wars so old their ashes had long since drifted into the void. And yet, for the first time in his long, hardened existence, he felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, not doubt, recognition. Slowly, he exhaled, his plated fingers curling against the stone table, his voice coming low and deliberate. Gorak, perhaps we underestimated you. The words lingered in the chamber like a foreign presence. Heavy, unsettling. Across from him, Drix, the scientist, still struggled to comprehend what had unfolded. His mind, trained in the cold logic of numbers, equations, and biological patterns, now found itself adrift, unable to categorize what he had just witnessed. A species with no armor, no natural weapons, no biological advantages, and yet, they did not merely survive. They dominated. His fingers twitched against the edge of his data slate. The numbers didn't lie, and yet, they still didn't make sense. He looked up, his voice more uncertain than he would have liked. Drix. You adapt, you strategize, you endure pain. His throat was dry, his next words carrying something dangerously close to reverence. What drives you? The human ambassador, who had, up until now, remained calm, controlled, and measured, did not respond immediately. Instead, he simply looked at them. The weight of his gaze sent a ripple through the assembly. It was not a challenge, not a threat, it was something deeper. Finally, he spoke. His voice did not rise. It did not need to. It was steady, certain. Human ambassador, we suffer. A pause. The Deathworlders did not move. But that suffering drives us. It pushes us forward. It makes us fight. The words were raw, not in volume but in truth. We do not just survive. His eyes swept across the chamber. We thrive. Another silence. But this one was different. It was charged, uncomfortable, electric. Gorak leaned forward slightly, his heavy brow furrowing. His people had clawed their way through extinction. His ancestors had eaten stone and drank poison to survive. Every species in this room had endured trials designed to break them. And yet, somehow, this fragile, soft-skinned creature had looked them in the eye and spoken as an equal. No, not an equal, something else. Drix felt it, too. He had spent his life studying resilience, calculating what made a species persist in the face of annihilation. And he had believed, up until now, that strength came from biology. But humans? Humans chose suffering. They sought adversity. They did not merely survive their world. They challenged it, and now, they stood here, before the deadliest species in the galaxy. Unshaken, unbroken. Gorak, then tell me, human, what is it that you seek? The human ambassador exhaled slowly. And then, he smiled. Not out of arrogance, not out of pride, but out of certainty. His voice was quieter this time, but it carried through the chamber like a knife sliding into flesh. To stand among you, the Deathworlders, masters of survival, had no rebuttal. Because for the first time, they understood, perhaps humans were the most dangerous species of all. And that realization? It terrified them. The evidence is there, the patterns are undeniable, but the biggest question remains. What are they waiting for? Are they simply observing, preparing, or have they already made contact, shaping our history from the shadows? One thing is certain, humanity is not alone. But the real question isn't whether they're out there, it's whether we're ready for the truth. What do you think? Have we been visited? Are we the only Deathworlders? Or are we just another experiment in a cosmic game far beyond our comprehension? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Stay curious, stay aware, because the truth is closer than you think.